When I bought this excellent grade Z06 Corvette at auction for nearly $20,000 off its retail, I thought I just got super lucky, and I chalked it up to the idea that maybe it was a quiet day on a no-reserve auction. But this idea proved to be wishful, as once we got the car, we discovered so many undisclosed problems that ultimately it led up to a huge cover-up job. Now, this car was graded a 4.7 out of 5. By auction standards, the car was near mint. An inspector will go over a car and note all of its issues and imperfections, and generally, these inspections on nicer cars are pretty thorough. But as we'll find out here, the inspector was either blind or a tight end for the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, I've bought a bunch of Corvettes from auction, and usually they have pretty low grades, like this repossessed C7 that was a bit rough around the edges. It was missing catalytic converters and had uneven paint. We turned it into a really fun cleanup and customize project. And our C4ZR1 was saltwater flooded in South Florida. This one was a constant challenge, but worth it for a cheap price of Corvette history. And we rebuilt this Grand Sport that had some minor undercarriage damage. It was torn down by a body shop before they deemed it a total loss. This was probably the best deal of the bunch because it looked bad in the photos, but it came with pretty much all the parts intact and had very low miles, all for around $13,000. So to get an excellent grade, clean title C6 Z06 with a high trim for the price of a base model was a nice change in pace. I couldn't wait for delivery so I could just enjoy a fun 500 horsepower drive instead of picking apart every issue that it has. Really, the only negative thing listed on this Z06 was a worn out set of tires, which is no problem at all since it's easy to get a great deal on tires over at PriorityTire.com. With the largest selection on the internet, you'll find tons of options to fit a Ferrari or a Ford truck like my dad's here. Recently, he went into a shop and was quoted over $1,700 for a new set.
I told him no way. We went straight on Priority Tire and found these Armstrong True Track all-terrains. They've got a very similar spec to the original tires with over 100 positive reviews and a 60,000 mile warranty, and each tire costs less than half of what they wanted at that other shop. So we got them going, and since Priority Tire orders ship for free, they arrived in just a few days. And they also have an option to get them shipped directly to an authorized installer if you prefer. Me, for some reason, I really like trying out new tire shops. There seems to be dozens of these places around where I live, and I end up going to a new one every single time. This gem of a place had no wait and only a few mosquitoes, and it all worked out pretty great. Now, another benefit of these outdoor places is I like to do a quick inspection of everything when the wheels are off, and I saw here that my dad's brake pads are about as worn as it gets. Of course, I'll have to replace those for him, so while I waited, I just went online and ordered a new set, and just a few mosquito bites later, the new tires were installed and I was on the road. These True Tracks from Armstrong were nice and quiet at cruising speeds and really comfortable, especially considering that they're an all-terrain tire. These are an awesome choice for the price, and with a 60,000 mile warranty, we shouldn't have to worry about tires for years to come. This is now the 5th or 6th set of tires I've personally ordered from Priority Tire, and I gotta tell you, the big difference you're gonna notice immediately is their selection. I don't think you'll find a place locally or online that has as many different tire choices available to you, which makes it really easy to find the right tire for your ride within your budget. And on top of that, every tire you order comes with a 90-day money-back guarantee. All you got to do is visit PriorityTire.com or hit the link in the description box. And when you do, make sure you use my discount code that's going to get you 5% off your tire order. Whether you need just a single because you had a blowout or a new set of 4, you're going to find them over at PriorityTire.com.
So here's the numbers. I won the bid on this Vette for $28,800. It's a 2009 model year with the top trim 3LZ package, and it has right around 40,000 miles. If you compare this anywhere else, the same car lists for closer to 50 grand. So there's a huge discount here for what I thought was a no compromise car. But the second it came time to pick it up, the problems immediately started. The selling dealer where the car was kept, they required a strict appointment time for these cars to be picked up. And if you've ever dealt with vehicle transport, most truck drivers show up within a window. So anyway, we worked through this as best we could. Supposedly the first driver that showed up, they were too early for their appointment, and these guys don't wait around. He left. Finally, later on in the day, I got a message that a new driver was there, everything was good, and my car was getting loaded on his truck. And 30 minutes after I was told that, I got a text message, which was a forwarded text from the dealership with the Corvette. It reads, "Hi, something happened that you need to be aware of. My team member gave your driver the keys to the Corvette, and he drove the Corvette to his trailer. Your driver has a truck on his trailer that has a dead battery. So he took jumper cables and connected the Corvette to the truck on his trailer for 1 hour to turn the truck on. He might have damaged the clutch. I didn't know clutches operated through the electrical system, but we'll get back to that in a moment. Now the clutch is to the floor. If there is any damage to the Corvette, it is your responsibility. Nobody authorized you to use the Corvette to jumpstart another. We have cameras that recorded the entire situation. That's very convenient for them because if the transport driver that we hired did damage the car, it's totally our fault. So the shipping broker asked for this footage. I also asked for the footage, and neither one of us were sent said footage. Now, having dealt with all sorts of problem cars, when I read that message, immediately I thought of the very common master cylinder issue that these C6 Corvettes have. It's basically a hydraulic failure, and it'll cause your clutch pedal to stick to the floor. The part's not all that expensive, it's not that labor intensive to fix, so even if I got the car with a bad master cylinder and I got it for over $20,000 off, I am thrilled. Now the dealer seemed very upset about this situation for whatever reason. I tried making contact with them, telling them, don't worry about it, it's probably not a big deal, but they wouldn't answer my phone calls. I think I had one verbal communication with them earlier on, and that was it. And they would just text me back saying, hey, we'll get back to you when we can. But again, they require an appointment to pick the car up. And at this point, I can't make this appointment if they won't get back to me. Every day that ticks down is one less day I'm able to arbitrate the car. But none of that mattered because when I called the auction and told them, hey, I can't get this car out of their lot, they're like, well, you need to arbitrate it right away. That way, we'll either end the deal or you'll be able to go get your car. Shortly after filing this arbitration claim, I got a call from a mediator at the auction. And right off the bat, I felt that they were very biased towards the seller. They immediately pointed the finger and said, well, your transport driver broke the clutch. Now, I explained to them the hydraulic problems that these cars have. And it was in one ear, not the other. They didn't care at all. But I said, hey, they supposedly have footage that shows this guy breaking the clutch. So have them send it to you. If we can verify that, then it's totally our problem. I will take the blame. And they did send this footage to the arbitrator. I'm going to show it to you in 1 second. But basically, the arbitrator, in communication with the selling dealer, was able to work out that they're open all the time and we could pick this car up whenever we wanted to. The story changed completely. And well, this is the footage they sent him of the clutch being destroyed.
This is the first of 2 video files that were sent over. It's very short. Looks like it was maybe security camera footage and just shows the Corvette driving through a parking lot. So at least we can say the car did drive at one time. There's only one other thing worth pointing out here, and it's this guy with the white ball cap, white shorts, and white shoes. In the next clip, for a quick second, you can see the clutch pedal on the floor, but otherwise there's nothing else here that shows anything. I guess this is probably the trailer the Corvette was meant to be loaded on, and that's it. Like, what's the point of even considering this as any evidence? Now, when I called the trucking company to get their side of the story, they said that their driver didn't even drive the car because he can't drive a stick. Like, how does a transport company admit that their driver, whose job is to move cars on a daily basis, can't drive a stick? Well, if anything, it's a great way to deny all responsibility if you never drove the car. And if you've ever dealt with vehicle shipping, transport companies almost always deny any damage. And while it's seeming impossible to find any truth to what is actually going on here, with what we were told up to now, if we go back and look at this clip, this guy right here, that's white cap, white shorts, and white shoes guy, right? I'm pretty sure he's the driver of the transport truck. And clearly in the first clip, he's seen outside the car while it's driving in the parking lot, which could support the idea that he didn't know how to drive a stick, so he asked the dealer to help him load it. It doesn't make any reasonable sense. The car was driving in one instant, and now it's not. I've experienced a weak master cylinder in many cars, and when it starts to go out, the pedal can get sticky, but you can usually keep the car drivable by pumping the pedal a few times to build hydraulic pressure. The next issue is that if I rehire transport to Florida for a non-driver, the shipping bill will end up 2 or 3 times the cost. So we had to come up with a quick change of plans. My friend OJ has a shop only 60 miles away from this Corvette. Outside of Chicago in Naperville, Illinois, Fluid Motor Union is really well known in the enthusiast communities, and OJ deals regularly with high performance and sports cars. We game planned getting the car to him so that he could sort out its clutch pedal issues. If things were as we suspect, it should be a pretty easy fix, and he could get the car drivable so that we could get it on a truck to me in Florida. To assure we got the vet out of this dealer's lot once and for all, OJ enlisted the help of a flatbed from Clifford's Towing.
Towing, who specializes in removal and retrieval of hard-to-get cars from uncommunicative dealers. And within a few hours, they picked the Vette and dropped it at Fluid. Later in the day, I got a call from OJ. He said cosmetically, the Vette looked pretty good, but noted it looked like it had seen quite a bit of track use. He got inside and tried pumping the pedal a few times, and it was gone, like there were no signs of hydraulic pressure. Last, he opened the hood and popped open the clutch fluid reservoir, and while it did have fluid, he noted it was very dirty, like more dirty than usual. He also found this steel braided hose near the reservoir, which could only be a remote clutch bleeder. This aftermarket modification makes it really simple to flush your clutch fluid, so it's ironic that it's present on a car that has really dirty fluid. Anyway, it was near closing time. I didn't want to take up too much more of OJ's day. I just had one request, and that was for OJ to check the engine and make sure that it was a real 7-liter LS7 engine. Because of all the headache we've gone through thus far, it made me very suspicious of the car. I did a bit of research and heard that you can confirm a genuine LS7 by its casting number on the front of the engine. It should read 7.0. OJ was still in front of the car. He said he would need to get a light and some other things to verify this, but he said he'd go and do it shortly. And minutes after hanging up the phone, I got a text from him with this picture, mentioning that the intake manifold looks a bit smaller than usual, that it looks more like an intake manifold off of an LS3 or a base model Corvette. He sent another text that read, "Look at the cylinder head number." And this is where my knowledge falls very short. So I zoomed in and saw the numbers 0821. I did a quick search and every result that came up was for an LS3 cylinder head. So this engine is definitely not what's supposed to be here. All signs are pointing to it being an LS3 or the same engine that comes in the standard Corvette. And that's strange in itself because it's one of those tricks that's been around for a while. People pull the desirable LS Corvette engines and swap them for Chevy truck motors because they share a similar footprint and are very easy to get running. Not to mention they're still pretty powerful. The big difference though is that every modern Corvette engine has an aluminum block, while the truck engines come with iron blocks. A cheap iron block can run in the hundreds of dollars, while the cheapest aluminum blocks are usually at least a few thousand. The LS7, on the other hand, used will cost you around $12,000 to $15,000. So if you're going through the trouble to take advantage of someone, usually you'd swap in the cheapest option available, which is the iron block truck engine. A used LS3 is still worth about $5,000 to $6,000, so while it's a far cry from the LS7, it's a lot of work to swap this in just to get one over on someone. But as OJ mentioned, this car looks very well track used, and it makes more sense that this was someone's toy and they might have blown the original engine, which would have been a fortune to replace, so they opted to install the LS3 to save a bit and still have a pretty capable track car. Capable or not, it's not what I was buying according to the auction, so we'll be arbitrating this, but even past its engine swap, OJ opted to get the car on a lift and do a thorough inspection, where he also found prior frame damage repair, among other things. He made a complete video of this on his channel, and I suggest you guys check it out. I went ahead and linked it down in the description. I've worked with OJ a few times before, and what I really admire about him and his operation is that on the surface, it might seem like it's a place only for specialty or exotic cars, but if you look around the shop, you'll always see everyday, daily drivers being repaired and maintained. OJ is the definition of an honest and hardworking guy, and he's kept so busy because he hardly says no, and it's what makes him so successful. A few years back when OJ was helping me with the BMW 3 Series, one bay over was a pretty generic Lincoln, and I found it strange because, like I said, I had the perception that OJ's place was only for super high-end cars, but the tech working on the car told me that it was an elderly couple's car, and they brought it to the dealer, who suggested they just trade it in because the engine had failed. And the couple really loved the car, it was paid off, and they didn't want a car payment. So they brought it to Fluid Motor Union, where they sourced a used replacement engine and swapped it in for him. Anyway, I think that quick story just kind of defines the type of guy that OJ is and how he runs his business. And with all the crazy cars that come through his shop, they have some great content. So be sure to check out his channel and drop him a follow. Immediately after OJ's findings, I sent an email to Arbitration telling him about the wrong engine and also outlining all the little issues the car had, because this thing was a 4.7 grade and it was completely misrepresented. And so Arbitration requested the car be returned to an auction. OJ had it flatbedded to the closest location, and within a day of it being there, I got a call back from Arbitration, and they said that they'd be closing out this claim in the seller's favor again, because when it comes to replacement engines, these cars are allowed to have them as long as they're 4 years old. Now, I obviously explained to them that this is not a replacement engine. It's a complete wrong engine, and they didn't care. They go, it's a GM engine and a GM car. So then when I started going down the line of everything else, because again, when a car is represented as drivable and it's not drivable, that's an arbitratable claim. When it's got frame damage that was undisclosed, that is 100% an arbitratable claim. And when they kept shutting me down with no reason whatsoever, I asked them, why are you so biased towards the selling dealer? They sent you this footage that was a bunch of nonsense, told you that the transporter broke the clutch, and they said, the conversation ends here. I am not biased. I've been very fair. That's it. It is buyer bought, meaning I own the car. Now, while I couldn't believe the arbitration outcome, I wasn't really concerned, not at this point, because by some miracle, this Corvette, with all the problems that it came with, it also came with a huge saving grace, a golden ticket. It came with a deal shield.
Now, out of the dozens of auction cars that I've bought, only 2 of them have had a deal shield. It's basically a no limits guarantee offered on cars that are in really nice condition, like this Corvette was presented. And it's the auction standing by the car. They're basically so confident that even if you don't like it for any reason at all, it can be returned for a full refund within 20 days of the purchase. This is the first time that I've ever used this service, and it's supposed to be super easy, but because of the problems that came along with this Corvette, it complicated everything and caused a lot of issues, but eventually I was refunded for the car and gone were my problems. Towards the end of this process, I got a call from the auction who couldn't find the title, and they called me asking if I knew where it was. I told them I had shipped it back to them several weeks ago and had tracking showing it was delivered. They checked again and found out that someone mistakenly filed it under Carvana. And that's where the story unfolds. Carvana is one of the most popular outlets at the auction. They have a huge inventory of trade-ins for sale every single day with no reserve. This car was traded into Carvana in the same exact way we got it. I dug around and was able to find this prior auction sale of our fake Z06 in basically the same exact condition that we received it in. And so it turns out just a few months prior, it was graded a 1.7 rough condition, and I'm pretty sure it was bought by the dealer that we ended up getting it from. How this number was increased so much with so little reconditioning is beyond me, but it goes to show you how simple it can be at these auctions to fall for a major scam like this. This entire situation was more of a time waste than anything, and I felt that by at least sharing this story, hopefully it could help some of you be aware of these problems, which seem to be more prevalent than I thought among auction Corvettes. If you feel that you learned something from this video, be sure to hit that like button, and if you want to see more of the differences between the LS engines swapped among these platforms, make sure you check out OJ's video over at Fluid Motor Union. Guys, I can't thank each and every one of you enough for watching today, and I'll catch you very soon.